Sorry for the late start, everyone, including Arno, who is here. This, of course, is Gamer 1745, and we are live on the interwebs. Yay! Yay, 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 yay. All right. And we are playing Panzer Corps 2 Frontlines Battle of the Bulge. That is the game. And we need to hold St. Vinth, hold two or more victory hexes. We're currently doing that. And destroy heavy tank unit. And that would be probably that, the Tiger 2s, for the optional one. But we definitely want to do the optional one. Tank destroyer back there doing its thing. The artillery is doing its thing just by existing. Okay. They're hanging out there. We saved them from big defeat. And how have you been, Arno? All right. Let's make an episode. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745, and we are playing Panzer Corps 2 Frontlines. There's new mode for the game, and this is the Battle of the Bulge DLC within that framework, and that's what we're playing here today. Now we've got to we've got to hold St. Vinth. We've got to hold two or more. We hold three of them. Victory hexes and destroy a heavy tank unit, which is at least one. I'd call a Tiger 2 a heavy tank unit. Now it looks like we're doing fairly damn well down here in the south, but we might I say, just get pushed on hard. So what I'm going to do is sort of turtle up here, I think, is what I... So yes, they're going to move up to here. And I know this is a forward positioning, and we could stay back here. But these guys are going to come up here, and these guys are here. So now all the armor is in the open, and it has anti-tank guns supporting it if it's going to be attacked. And we're going to move up some artillery and deploy. Okay, I think that, well, let's get the Rangers up a little bit further forward. We might as well move this guy up here. Get a little better look around. And up here, we do have some ability to be offensive. The counter battery would be let's use artillery on this guy here. And nope, not on Kick or Rumble today. I woke up late. Sort of knew I was going to, and just it's more effort to get started on those services. So I did not do that today. Don't know that that attack is worth it. Well, yeah, no, it's not worth it necessarily. Okay. All right. They're moving their heavy up here. Let's look down here. Okay, there's probably the guy that's still back there. But what we're going to do is come up here because we're being aggressive. Yeah, I know he's in the forest. That is an issue. We're going to get him artillery support. Well, heavy tanks come down here. Well, okay, that would eliminate them, and that would be a nice thing. These guys are going to elite reinforce. Okay, we're going to try to suppress these stugs. Little bit of damage. Pretty heavy damage there. There we go. These guys are going to fall back to heal. These guys are going to move up. They're still in artillery. That's right. Okay. See if we can suppress those wasps. Ooh, we suppressed them and did some real damage. So we're gonna gut that unit and take a bit of damage doing it. There we go. We got just a few turns left to achieve our Advanced goal. Okay, you can come up here. We're doing pretty good. We'll just keep you there. We can move you up. Yeah, move you to here. That was damaging. This guy particularly. Okay. Alright. Well, here they got me a bit surrounded. Hello, General Skaven. How you doing today? I hope well. Okay, we got Hetzers in the woods. Hetzers in the woods. Well, yes, very, very likely Trump is going to win, I would say. We want to use these infantry against the Hetzers. Oh, that's a flame panzer Hetzer. Oh, I did not realize that. Okay, you guys come up here. Well, we found an anti-tank gun and a whole lot of other infantry types. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Okay, now that we know that that's here, we got lots of artillery. Let's move these guys down this way. Yes, Biden is a joke. That would be correct. He is an old man who is really not capable of doing anything himself. Okay, well, we're going to check them. Got some artillery here. I think we're going to pound these guys. And these guys we're going to just do replacements. An old demented fool who doesn't know he lives. Yeah, you're not far wrong there, Arno. Oh, good. We've taken out that. Wanted to do so. Now I hope this guy comes in and pushes hard. Right against my Jacksons and Wolverines and such. There we go. I like that. Well, he sounds like a communist to me. I don't know if that's a joke, but I just can't imagine anybody thinking that Biden is mentally competent to do the job. And I mean that very, very seriously. And I know everyone thinks, oh, well, his cabinet and all those people are the people that are actually doing the job. Well, yes, they're correct. But still, the president does have a lot of authority and whatnot. And so we are being... it is when I'm talking, because Arnaud and General Scavan, I know I'm not going to write immediately out your countries. I know you've talked about them, and you can do so, but you are part of the Western world, and the Western world, for better or worse, is run by the U.S. heavily. Yes, you have a lot of inputs into your own countries. I'm not saying that you don't, but you are very much dependent upon Western decisions by the U.S. president. Yeah, that was a mistake, wasn't it? Okay, so for better or for worse, you are there. What's Monk's Strap? You guys are being asked to pick the least worst option. Actually, no, I'm actually very pleased to vote for President Biden, because there's still the Stug back there, but we just can't see him now because of... Yeah, that was going to happen. I wished he would have pushed harder on me, but I ground on him a bit. Leave reinforcements there. Open actually. Reduce him down by 1 actual point. We got beat on pretty badly. Good. I know Trump rubs a lot of people the wrong way, but you know what he really does? He rubs government officials the wrong way, and I'm right now pleased by that idea. So I am not overly displeased with Trump. I think a lot of people who watch the regular sort of news have opinions about Trump that are not exactly correct. Hello, minefield. Okay. You're going to move you up here. I know you're sort of... will be personal for him, mostly because he likes Bolsonaro. I think that is correct, and I also think he believes that there were election shenanigans going on in the Brazilian election, and he feels that they went on. And I think it's they've actually stated certain levels of shenanigans happened in the U.S. I don't think it's as fraudulent as some people think here in the U.S. I don't care who people vote for as long as they vote and accept the results and don't get to do over just because your guy lost. Yeah, I know, but and that's an interesting idea. But we've been seeing ever since George Bush the younger was elected president. They used to say selected, not elected, because the Supreme Court did not pick who was president, but in his election, but made certain rulings regarding the Florida vote counting. I think reasonable and correct rulings, but they made rulings that had Bush win that election. The local county people, which were at the time in a very Democratic controlled district, didn't like the rulings because they wanted to count votes for Al Gore at the time that would have put Al Gore as winning. But other people said, nope, that is not the right way to do it. And so you can argue over whether they made the right choices or not, but George Bush was elected and the Democrats didn't accept it. And then the Democrats did not accept Hillary losing to Trump. You know, they used to say, not my president. And there were many, many people that said it was a Russian, plot to get Trump elected, the Democrats. And yes, Trump then later, when he lost, and my understanding is Trump got more votes than any other U.S. president before him, but Biden got even more votes. So, and votes in the right places to win. So, it's both parties that are having a problem with this. It is not just, as one might think, the latest party to not like the way the election turned out. Okay, did we have any? Oh, goody, 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 goody. We've got this thing here. Well, still think we have the Stug there. This guy's not doing well. So what we're going to do is we're going to move up him next to the Stug here. Ooh, that ain't so great either. Okay, but that will sort of do scouting enough. You can pound on him a bit. Actually take him down one. They surrendered. Got their butts kicked back. He's going to move up here, and he is going to by even one. Oh, you actually knocked him down by one. Okay, that's changed. Okay, sir. Due to the German offensive and any available troops are hastily deployed, but larger reinforcements will need days to arrive. At least another anti-tank unit is combat ready now. Close. Okay, that we've got the new combat ready anti-tank unit because we achieved that. Is this no? Okay. here? Is this undeployed? No. Okay. No, that's. Oh, he got kicked out of him. Okay. I'm not. That's it. Okay, we're going to reinforce that. That's the new anti-tank unit, I do believe. Okay. And can't move at this time. We need to put artillery on them. And we're going to attack them. To significantly weaken them. Now we're going to come over here and attack these 105 millimeters Lisch field howitzers 18 and do that to them. Yeah, we're going to retreat our reconnaissance. And that really sort of messed them up. But we'll let that stand for the moment. The issue, use voting machines. They are easier to fraud and to question the election system. Right now, you can go to jail. That's bad. Hello, ZZ. I am doing well. Right. Okay, up here we are doing reasonably well. React to multiple fronts here. Right. Okay, well, we've achieved the sort of elite objective. Okay, well, the attack there didn't go so great for them, but went. Okay, push these guys back even more. Going to make sure we're holding that. Okay, that sort of crapped out on them. That crapped out. Very good. We're gonna these guys, we can only move them a little bit, so we're going to move them to here so they get artillery backup. These guys are put down here so they get artillery backup, and they're going to reinforce. Ah, they're crossing the river or attempting to do so. That didn't go so well for them, see? Well, federal Supreme Court acting like a dictator, so Brazil, even the federal Supreme Court system is corrupt. Good to hear, ZZ, that you're well. I know you're sort of young, General Scaven, but I remember when Brazil was a dictatorship, and I don't know that since independence, Brazil has ever been a stable country that the people have had confidence in the system to work legitimately. Because it takes years, maybe I should say generations, to build up that kind of confidence in the system. That is why a country like Britain has done so well, is that it's had the last, well, we can talk, the last real sort of military coup that was successful in Britain was in 1688. So since 1688, it has been very, very stable government. And you can see places, Germany is getting pretty stable, but that's because the U.S. has been, U.S. and other people, but particularly the U.S. has been occupying it, at least the current. Obviously, the Soviets were occupying the east bit, but and you see other countries like that. Trying to build good stability is difficult. So, but do they have any real regard for the Constitution? Does the I don't know Brazil like you do, and I'm not saying they don't, but I have a feeling that they don't necessarily regard the Constitution like we regard the Constitution in the U.S. Sure thing, Monkstrap. Thanks for hanging out for a bit. All right, so we've achieved our optional goal. We are doing the main goals. I think we are doing. Oh, we can still attack here and effectively mess this up. It looks like. And that's good. Oh, we got some capturing equipment if we want to use it. I almost forgot about this. Yeah. There we go. Well, oh, well, we can't quite pursue to taking them out, so we won't go too crazy there. The goal is to hold objectives. Yeah, copying the U.S. in form is not a bad way to go. The Republic is a good form of government. Like I say, a lot of it comes down to if people respect it or not. And not necessarily everyone does. Now, right, well, I'm going to move you up to here. Still think there's that. I'm not sure if it's surrendered. I think there's one more unit hanging out there. Well, since we sort of kind of think that, let's move up. There they are. Did we just take it out? And since we don't want to lose that even for the moment, we'll move them into support there. You know, one of the main purposes, I mean, yes, I like hanging out with people, I like playing games, and all of that is some of the reasons why I have a YouTube channel. I mean, for those few that have been around long enough know that the channel was really just started to show off my mod, Third Reich Events for Hearts of Iron 3, Black Ice, which is no longer working with the current version of Black Ice. It needs a major update. But and the reason, but a good big, and part of the reason was just I wanted to make the mod to make the game a bit more interesting. But even very much early on in that, it was to teach lessons from history, not just historical lessons. And I try to separate that out. Meaning, historical lessons is something like, on this day, this thing happened. You know, the Battle of the Bulge happened, and here's the details. Those are historical lessons. Now, lessons from history is what history can teach us by knowing these things. You know, that we learn, you know, about historical things. You know, or learn about humanity, learn about, which I think is very important to study, learn if under certain conditions these things are likely to happen. So you have very much the situation, and this is important to talk about, the creation of the Weimar government to rule over what had been Imperial Germany. Yeah, they carved some territory off for Poland and France and whatnot, but mostly the German Empire was still intact. And they decided that the Kaiser was the problem in Germany. Either without the Kaiser, and I'm not exactly sure why they thought he was a problem, whether they thought that the Kaiser made the Germans more aggressive, territorially, or whether they thought that without the Kaiser, Germany would have been more willing to negotiate. There is a myth, and I think it's clearly shown to be a myth, that democracies do not attack each other. That democracies will not decide to be aggressive territorially, meaning they'll fight to defend themselves, fight to defend allied nations, but not fight to conquer. I don't think that is the case, because hell, we could look at Athens, which wasn't a democracy in the modern terms. It was sort of a tribal, because there were tribes within Athens, and they had slaves, and they had non-citizens, and women didn't vote. So it was not one person, one vote. And the different tribes, and I'm not exactly sure all of the details, but the different tribes put a representative people into the Athenian legislature, whatever it was called, I don't know. Now, at times, they had dictators and whatnot, and some of them were democratically elected. Because, hey, the Persians were, coming and burning down the city and all this stuff. So let's, we can't debate all the stuff, we need to do. We need to put someone in charge. And that is a reasonable thing for a democracy, is to, and the Romans under the republics, which at times were faced by, literal existential crisis, meaning they're up on the Capitoline Hill, one of the 7 hills of Rome, and they're sort of fortified in themselves, and they've seen their city. The barbarians have burnt down most of their city, and they're just sort of like hanging out at the top of this hill, trying to keep the barbarians from massacring them to every last woman and child or whatever. So that they this is before the late Republic when things are falling. They would elect something like an imperator to be a dictator for the emergency or for 6 months or for and it's a good thing to do when you're that kind of extremist. It's like putting somebody like Eisenhower in charge of the European theater of operations, or Nimitz in sort of the Pacific theater, though he sort of has MacArthur doing his own thing. But you can sort of kind of see that yeah. Now of course there is, though I would say very, very little. I mean, we can talk about it, and I'm not expert on the details, but there's very, very little functional oversight, or civilian legislative oversight during the war. I do believe the Congress was holding hearings on stuff, and people were coming and testifying on things, but I really think it was. Now the war was going reasonably well for the Americans after the first few days of the Pacific, so there really wasn't a lot for people to get upset about, either the man and woman in the street or the legislature type people to get upset with what FDR was doing. And FDR was basically running the country like a dictatorship at that point in regards to the war, which was in regards to just about everything, getting rubber stamps from the legislature. And that's that's understandable. And there were mechanisms like declaring war, that within our Constitution, that I will say this, for the most part, for FDR, regarding the war, they used constitutional measure or constitutional institutions to set up the powers that they used, meaning they weren't just declaring them, willy-nilly by different people. We can talk about, I'd actually say there's longer lasting, more unconstitutional things that are done, more by the administrative state than anything else under FDR, and that's during the Depression, which one of them is still very much in force today. So, democracies can be very aggressive. So they decided that the Kaiser needed to go from Germany. Well, a lot of the socialists... Hello, Elaine Dornan. How you doing? I'll get to... I don't know if you have a question. I'll get to some of the chat here in a moment. So, a lot of the socialists in Germany were not anti the monarchy. They were they were social progressives. They were socialists, for sure. But they understood the system, and they understood that Bismarck that set up the first large social security program for older people that you pay in through the system. And there were other various social reforms going on, and they were definitely for social reforms, but they weren't necessarily all of them. Or I don't know the breakdown prior to the collapse of the German Empire. But the socialists weren't just like an anti-monarchical party at its core in Germany prior to the empire. Now, part of that may be that it was a monarchy that was an empire that wasn't necessarily going to allow openly parties that want to destroy it being part of it. But either way, you have that. So you have this basically externally imposed democracy on Germany. They forbid the Kaiser from being in power, so the Weimar government is set up. Well, very few people in Germany liked the Weimar Constitution. The right, the conservative right, didn't. They wanted the Kaiser. The radical right And there were various factions, including Ludendorff's faction, including that little guy with the mustache. Oh, Hitler's faction, the Nazis. And they were a growing party, but and eventually, obviously, take over. But the radical right didn't like the Constitution. The radical left did not like the Constitution, the communists. And yeah, the sort of center-left socialists more or less liked the Constitution. The liberal market capitalists sort of liked the Constitution. But those two groups were obviously opposed to each other. One being for, socialism, the other one being sort of for, I don't know if really in the context of free market capitalism, but sort of market capitalism, if you will. So the center was divided, and a lot of people did not like the Constitution. So there was not any love or respect for the Constitution, because the Hitler types, of course, and want to tear down the Constitution if they get in power, and that's what they do over time. So you have an externally imposed Constitution on a country that does not respect it. And so you get, you get everybody trying to tear it apart and trying to tear apart society. And so that's what happens in Germany. And so the system is not respected by the people. Now, what you have going on in other countries in modern day time period, including Brazil, I think the current Brazilian president does not like the Brazilian Constitution. Now, I say I think because I'm not Brazilian and I do not know the politics well enough, but he does seem like a radical leftist, whether explicitly a communist or because you can have other radical leftist beliefs, syndicalism and other things, but he is definitely a radical leftist. I don't know if he self-describes as a communist, and I don't know his personal platform well enough to know if it's classical communism, but it's radical. So, and I definitely see it as another sort of people's power demagogic movements of the left. Hope everyone knows what I mean by all those words. Like we see in Venezuela, starting with Hugo Chavez, the paratrooper guy who tries a coup and fails, gets a little bit of prison time, and then goes through the somewhat democratic process getting in power. Doesn't that sound like another guy who tries a coup in Bavaria, the beer hall? Well, they called it a putsch because it was Germany, and he fails and he goes to prison for a little bit of time and then he gets out and then, yeah, sort of like that mustache guy all over again. So you get people that at their core do not, and prior to Hugo Chavez coming to power, Venezuela had been one of the more economically successful and more stable, especially if you look at its like next door neighbor, Colombia, with FARC controlling a good 1/3 of the country. They were a communist insurgency, so long civil war and whatnot. So compared to some other regional nations, Venezuela was doing relatively well, and Hugo Chavez comes into power in that environment and wrecks the place, in my opinion. But hey, maybe people like government-imposed weight loss programs by limiting the amount of food that people get to eat because it's just not there. Yeah, maybe America needs that. I don't know. So you have that going on, you also have, so you have to have a reasonable trust in the system. Now, I know enough Americans that no longer have a trust in the U.S. system. They no longer have trust in the government agencies to be objective in their applications of government policies, meaning they will run around and enforce the laws, which are things passed by legislatures, regulations. Those things are just created by bureaucracies, bureaucrats, and are not necessarily codified as laws, but are enforced as if they were laws. And ordinances are basically the same thing as regulations. Sometimes maybe sort of can be legislatively done, but run around and apply these, regulations and laws to either individuals or to corporations that they don't like who owns them or what they're doing, but doesn't necessarily apply the same scrutiny levels to organizations, companies, corporations, individuals, whatever, that are with the general program. And I think a good example of this is some of Elon Musk's various corporations that he either, well, I don't. Most of them he doesn't fully own. I mean, he might be the majority shareholder, meaning the controlling shareholder, but there are others that once he sort of, at first he's cheered by the left, not demonized by the right that I can remember, but cheered by the left because he's out there doing, electronic vehicles, and he's, making spaceships and whatnot. But once he comes out being political in getting Twitter, they start looking at and asking why his SpaceX corporation are not hiring certain individuals. And I believe he even testifies before Congress or whatever when he's being questioned by this, and individuals of a different ethnic background. And he says something like, we can't because we require security clearances for working for SpaceX because they handle secret government programs, putting secret government satellites up into space, and they have technology clearances. So the government is going after him for not hiring enough illegal aliens or brown people or whatever you want to say, because we're mostly talking about brown people in that case. And they're not hiring enough of them, but they can't because other government regulations say you can't because you have to have security clearances to work in and around for certain contracts, and Elon Musk is doing some of those contracts. And quite honestly, I think the only reason that the government didn't seize Twitter or has not regulated Twitter more heavily is certain politicians and certain government agencies were quietly told to shut up and don't do too much because they need Elon Musk's SpaceX and Starlink cooperation, that it will get really, really, really messy to try to go in and seize those and try to do that. And so they just can't shut him out. So the politicians still speak loudly, but they don't do anything substantial against him because he controls, Tesla is one thing, the Boring Company is another thing. Like those things, well, they don't really matter. But the space program that is the primary U.S. space program right now is SpaceX, at least in looking at the tonnage of material put into orbit. So, not that he's an untouchable, but he is definitely something they can't just go after with lawsuits ad infinitum and seizing, assets and whatnot. So he is, such a key figure. So that's some of where I'm looking at it. So looking at places, I believe that there are. I don't think it's indisputable that the left, and it's not and I also some of the people that I talk to, they talk about they're not specific, and I try to understand because they're always talking about various things. Sometimes I think nutty things, but there isn't just a one they. There isn't just the Trilateral Commission or Davos people, or there's all kinds of different interest groups out there, and sometimes conflicting goals. But the left, I believe, has captured, if you will, every major institution in the Western world, whatever you want to call an institution. A manufacturing corporation, a media corporation, education, government departments. Leftism is to fairly radical communism is acceptable to be in those positions. You're not necessarily and get promoted and be part of it. Where if you came out as something on the radical right, you very well may lose your any significant position. So I would say that is very much the case. Now, it's multiple factions, but a lot of these leftists want to destroy the traditional Western society. They want to destroy it, and so, and these are various elements. It's not just one coordinated cabal at the top, circling the planet in some sort of blimp like we saw in the Simpsons or something like that. It's various factors. Sometimes they talk to each other, sometimes they don't. And so they're trying to tear down Western society. Some in a evolutionary, progressive way. That's what progressivism is through evolution. Some radically, in revolutionary type terms. So I don't know that, and we start where we started, at Brazil. I don't know that the average Brazilian cares one little bit about the Constitution. I don't know that they do. And from what I know from General Scaven, I believe he is at least sort of middle class to that or above, particularly in the Brazilian context. He doesn't live in a favela or whatever they call them, the sort of organically built slums area. So I don't know if that would be upper class or middle class or whatnot, but I don't need to know those kind of details, Scaven. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. But so you might put value by the Constitution, but I don't know that most Brazilians care about it. They may care more about electricity and hopefully getting good plumbing someday. that may be higher on their priorities than some constitutional thing. And so they may believe that, the Constitution is just what we would sort of call um, red tape to getting the good stuff done. So, yeah, that's sort of how I look at, and so lessons that we can see here from World War II, that we get the Nazis in power because the right and the left, not just radicals, but the right and the left do not support the Constitution, and the center um, does not address the basic people's needs, partially because the center in Germany at the Weimar is divided. They might both sort of like the Constitution, so I'm sort of talking this sort of, center left, the sort of mild socialist, and the center. I'm not going to go center right, but center, the sort of liberal market capitalist types might think the Constitution is more or less a good setup in Weimar Germany, but those two parties are not banding together and doing good policies that keep the extremists, at least on either side of the right or left, from rising to power. The center fails, so the extremists, and then it's to the point basically in 33 that 32 actually is the year. It's January 33 is when the election happens, but it's 32 is sort of the year of conflict that really decides whether Germany was going to go communist or Nazi. And those really get down to your sort of binary choices at that point. No other faction was going to have a large enough support to rule the country. They're the only those factions, and the Nazis, when in 33, when Hitler comes to power, they are not the majority. They are the plurality in that they're the biggest party, but they don't constitute the majority of either those who voted in the German elections or the most legislatures or whatever. Some areas they're heavily majority. They hold a lot of city councils and whatnot, mayors, and those. In other areas they're very much a minority. So, but they're able to form a coalition government with sort of the traditional right. But the traditional right no longer had enough voting bloc members to hold the government, and the sort of non-radical left no longer had enough support to hold the government. It was either going to really sort of go communist or Nazi, and that's sort of kind of what we're seeing, though different setup in Brazil. All right, let's look at. Skaven thinks a lot of Twitter is AI. Well, I think a lot of that's been gotten rid of. Hello, Bubble Butt versus me. How you doing? Nice to have you here from Belgium. And hello, Zaza. Good to have you here. Hope you guys sort of liked my hopefully interesting talk on the lessons from history that constitutions only really matter if people actually buy into them. And also, another thing is to not have some form of dictatorial government. Now, when I say some form of dictatorial government, you very well may have like a junta, as they are often called in Latin America, or like in the Soviet Union, a Politburo, a small council of people that may have equal voting or may have different factions or whatever, but them ruling. You have to have a general consensus on the nature of your country. If you do not, and like one of them, and I don't know that maybe Belgium is moving towards breaking up. You have two different ethnic groups in Belgium, and it's only, I guess, Brussels is where they're intermixed. Otherwise, they're divided more or less north and south. If you do not, and the only thing that really holds them together is that they're Catholic, and I think that the religion of the people is becoming less important than it was back in, I don't know, what was it, 1813, 1815 or something, when, the British sort of formed Belgium. Um, so yeah, they used to dub Skyrim to Portuguese through the AI. Yeah. Um, you think AI will be better than humans at some point? Well, it depends on doing what. And AI can be very, very dark future, Terminator, or it can be a very, very bright future, um, Buck Rogers in the 21st century. If you look at that TV series from the 1970s, that AI was running humanity in a very positive way. So I don't know. The socialists here in the EU considered centrum. Yes, yes, and that's why I was calling the socialists of the Weimar center left versus the radical communists and the anarchists and whatever else running around Weimar Germany on the radical left. But yes, it is like the AI can dub stuff already without emotion. Yeah, I don't know how much. I don't really know, and I'm definitely not the person to talk to about it in any real informed way. Um, Meaning I don't know what I'm talking about, but I've listened to people that claim to know what they're talking about. I really don't know how much there is AI yet. What that it's intelligence. We have programming. We have so AIs can do things which in essence are just programs can do things that are formulaic, running formulas. Why was I able to defeat the computer, quote unquote, AI in this game so handily? I am playing it at a general level, which is sort of the sort of medium spectrum. To my knowledge, the only difference between the levels is either the size of the enemy and or the size of your defensive force, not how smart your opponent is playing. So we have, you know, and obviously this AI, that's here, that's running this battle, is a very simplistic AI, if you will, as well, it's obviously artificial. It's very artificial, however intelligent it is. So doing calculations, whatever those may be, computers are great at it, and computers are inherently better at it than humanity, even if humanity, in its own way, in its own mind, does so many more calculations better, faster, more dynamically. But in a way, AIs or computers do calculations better. So if you're looking at, and what a lot of people look at, large language models, so they're looking at formulas and then trying to look at, because I know Skaven talks a lot to AIs. Um, it's looking at other human interactions and writings that it's finding on the internet and mimicking what other humans have said. I do not know if the AI is in any way yet, and I don't know, creative. Meaning, do they do anything more than find, oh, um, tell me about a tree, you know, like a particular type of tree. And it just goes and finds some human talking about that tree and parrots it back to you. And when you ask a question of it, it finds what it's tries to find a similar question and tries to find what another human answered about that question and then parrot it back to you and try to parrot it back to you in a way or manner that someone's programmed it to make it seem like it's an intelligent entity and not just a parrot. Wow, Polly wants a cracker. And a parrot probably gets the idea once, definitely has the label for cracker, and has learned that its call sign, because parrots do, and it's why they can parrot things, do seem to have call signs or names, is Polly. So yes, but a lot of parrots often, hear humans ask it, does Polly want a cracker? Yeah, Polly wants a cracker. And it just parrots it back to it. And some parrots get smart enough to say, Polly wants water or whatever else, and it may do that. But is it being creative, or is it just learning, signals, like danger, because, birds have calls like, hey, I want sex, or hey, there's food over here, or hey, danger, danger, look out, and there's calls or signals that birds use. So is it just learning a few human signals and parroting it back? So is the AI doing anything more than well-organized parroting? I don't know that it is. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't be dangerous. And it doesn't mean that if it gets programming in charge of something like stop all wars, well, humans cause wars, ergo, to stop all wars, let's kill all humans. I mean, it could just, and it couldn't have it may not know why we even want to stop a war. Why wars may even be bad. Because it hasn't been told. It just been told enough priority wars are bad, stop wars. Not like human life is precious, don't allow human life to be extinguished. So do things to stop human life from being extinguished. I mean, if you have that sort of iRobot kind of programming at the core of an AI, don't do things that allow humanity, humans to be killed. Do everything you can to limit humans' deaths. Do everything you can to, promote the longevity of an individual human and humanity in general. If that's at the core of its programming, well, it may end up making stupid decisions that I can't foresee, but maybe that would be enough that it goes, oh, well, stopping wars is a good thing, but killing all humans to achieve that goal is not the best way to do it. So, I don't know, General Skaven, just how, and so dubbing stuff, yeah, if it gets the dictionaries enough with context and whatnot, yeah, it can dub stuff. That's sort of formulas. As long as it's doing formulas, it's doing. We have 4 in Belgium. You got to be speaking Dutch, French, German, and our capital. Yes, you're absolutely right. Bubble butt. You have the sort of capital mixed, and you have a little bit of German along the old border with Germany area, and then Dutch and French. Yes. AI mostly copies things right now. Yes, and I don't know that simply throwing more processing power at AI is making it any more. I don't know if the right term is heuristic or more creative in its. Save this here. In its behavior, as opposed to. So I don't know if we've ever, if more processing power allows it to examine more choices and to maybe edit the choices down to seem more responsive to the questions it's either being asked or whatever. I don't know that other than cutting and editing things together that, say, the AI will ever develop anything new, like a new political structure. Some new political. I right now cannot imagine an AI coming up with a new political structure. Sort of as seeing humanity has not come up with a new political structure in a couple thousand years. They've cut and pieced together stuff from old political structures, but a new political structure. But I could see the AI making reasonable cost-benefit analysis for, say, government paying for healthcare. Might be the way. Like, oh, hey, these 10 people that get some sort of condition, a disease, an infection, or whatever, that cost $1 million a year keep alive, and it's something so incredibly rare. It just and let's say it's also painful, extremely painful or something. Well, I guess maybe they could just give them opiates or whatever and keep them alive until they naturally die or something like that. But just decide, hey, yeah, that just ain't worth it. There's too few people. We're not going to try to find a medicine to cure this. Yeah, we'll like I say, give them opiates so they aren't painful. We try to take care of them until they pass. But it just is not worth the budget to do research to cure whatever disease this may be, or condition, or infection, or whatever. But something like cancer, which kills lots and lots of people, humanity, well, yeah, let's throw a lot of money at research at the problem. And I could also see an AI looking at all the different research reports that it's getting from humanity and sharing information back and forth to research teams and go, hey, this line of research looks promising, this line of research doesn't look promising because 3 different teams have tried it and it's all failed. Now, it may be almost there, but is always failing, and we stop researching down what would have been the cure for cancer cheaply and effectively. But so I could see an AI looking at, like money or industrial capacity or whatnot, and making good reasoned, whether I want it to or not is another question, but a good reasoned overall big picture decisions on what cures for humanity should we pursue now. And that type of stuff. Because sometimes cures, they're trying to cure baldness and they figure out how to cure a skin rash instead. So sometimes they're trying to cure one thing and they find out something that cures something else. Nice happy accidents or something. But obviously, you try to cure stuff that affects large numbers of people first. And partially you do that is that makes you money, because you're a corporation and that's who's funding to do some of these research. And even if you're a government, you go after, oh, hey, yes, some infinitesimal percentage of people get some sort of rare thing where, hey, yeah, 1/4 of the population eventually gets cancer and dies. And of course, some of that might be, smoking induced or other, personal behavior induced. But it could just be that eventually you live long enough, you get cancer, and what can we do to cure it? And so let's put, resources that way. Meaning you can have a full life, or most people can have a full life before they get cancer. So getting cancer when they're 80 years old, well, you're doing okay. But so we look at these kinds of things rationally, if you will. I know everyone's emotional when they get, or a family member gets, a particular condition. But looking at it from a big picture perspective, government should be rational and make, decisions like that. So AIs might be able to, allocate resources and look at, objectively looking at statistics that it's fed and come up with good decisions. But I don't know that it's going to make, like I say, new political organizations or new cultural developments. Probably speaking too much on all this. Probably getting boring. Okay. Let's see. Google made a racist. Hello, Ringo the Dingo. Yes. AI. White. Yes, absolutely. And see, this is the AI that it made, and we're calling it AI for lack of a better term. I think somebody did come up with another term. It's all of it is like any computer program in, garbage out. If you're just feeding it garbage, it's going to have those opinions. And when you just build on top of that garbage, it's like building a building on a bad area foundation. You build it on swampland. It's not a good place to build. Now you can try to stabilize it and try to work with it and do something, but you're still building on swampland. So absolutely. The funny thing is, ethnic groups have all their own rules, laws, and orders, and somehow we make it work. Yes, well, ethnic groups, especially if you're looking at cultural groups, yes. I am very much, if you're new around here and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button if you haven't already. To hear me pontificate on things while playing games. Ethnic groups, especially on a cultural basis, are a collection of social protocols, ways of interacting with people. What do you mean when you make mouth noises, and how you interact with each other. So yes, and so humanity over every other species developed strategies of success based on cooperation. I recently watched a video clip of, I think it was in India, but it was somewhere, that two different groups of small monkeys were battling each other out in the middle of a street. Like easily 100 monkeys or more, and maybe that many per side, two different tribes, and they were right in the middle of a busy street that everyone was sort of stopped. They were having this brawl, punching doing whatever, attacking each other in different groups and little charges and lunges. And not just like a 2-minute video I saw of this monkey fight for control over a territory that, presumably they're either picking food out of trash or humans are feeding them or whatever. So it's choice territory, and they're battling it out over it. Well, those monkeys, again, may have a charge, within their social group, a charge sound or whatever. And so, they make some noise and a bunch of them charge and whatnot. Well, humanity, by creating language, says, you 10 go to the right, you 15 go to the left, and us 30 are going to go up the middle. And, we organize a strategy in detail. And so that is what makes culture, and that is why humanity is more successful. Sure, and it's partially because we have very big brains, and individually we're also, tool makers and whatnot. So, but yeah, it's the interactions, the social interactions, and this is why, ultimately, why communism has failed too, but it's why the U.S. liberal democracy has failed to spread around the world, is because it is a social organization that is foreign to lots of parts of the world. You look at Japan, yeah, it's sort of been a liberal democracy, but if you really look at Japan closely, it is still a collectivist society, less collectivist than, say, Chinese society, but it's always been less collectivist than the Chinese society. And it's very cooperative. No one, the Japanese saying of the nail that sticks up gets hammered down. So it's a very cooperative society. It is a, like I say, collectivist, but does, at least in the modern sense, does recognize individuality. and the needs of an individual, but not necessarily the needs of the individual over the group. It's the group can put up with a certain amount of sticking out of nails, but not too much that it disrupts the harmony of the society. Japan is very much into societal harmony. So democracy, because it literally occupied by the U.S. and controlled by the U.S. for a long time, but they've been able to set up a system that they can harmoniously have what appears to be, I'm not saying it is, saying it appears to be a liberal democracy. So that looks like a success. But you go to a place like Latin America, which has no tradition of liberal democracies. Okay, they come from the Spanish Empire, ruled by absolute monarchs, whether Habsburgs at first or later Bourbons. And so, Portugal, I don't know the Portuguese ruling family name. It's something that escapes me. But the Portuguese monarch goes into exile to Brazil when the French invade during the Napoleonic Wars. And when the Portuguese monarch goes home to Portugal, when the British got a thing, tells his son, you stay in Brazil, and if they go independent, you become the king of Brazil. So Brazil and the rest of Latin America have zero tradition of liberal democracy, where the American colonies are coming out of a rising liberal democracy. They reject radical democracy attempt of parliament, although that quickly turns into a dictatorship of Cromwell. And even though they restore monarchy and restore monarchy's power, even in restoring it, they reaffirm that there is a certain amount of liberal democracy. Parliament has very significant controls in the government, and when the government looks like it's maybe becoming a little too dictatorial, and also in context there in Europe prior to it, maybe Catholic as being what at the time was a very big problem, they get rid of their monarch for a monarch that is willing, one is Protestant, and two is more willing to listen to, you get to be monarch, and yeah, monarch has power, but you got to listen to Parliament more. So, and so that is the background of the people that formed the United States. So all of Latin America does not have any tradition of this. And it is only, and I don't even really know enough about Simon Bolivar. He is, quote unquote, the George Washington, basically the liberating general of Latin America. I don't know really Simon Bolivar to know enough that he really does he want to install liberal democracy, or does he want to be the dictator? I don't know. I just don't know. I've read about some of his military campaigns. I do not know enough about his political background. But so nothing in the cultural DNA of Latin America, and you have various Latin Americas with differing levels of European emigration. Some places like Paraguay or Bolivia are still highly Indian in genetic makeup. Others, like Argentina and Uruguay, are highly European in makeup, in genetic makeup. And it varies in mix, and there's a certain amount, particularly like in Brazil, and a little bit more into northern Latin America, African slave immigration, forced, obviously. But to my knowledge, none of these groups, and those are exploited at differing levels by Spain, to slavery of the Indians when they were particularly non-Christian, and then as time goes on, at least I was reading a while ago about Mexico. Mexico slavery is abolished for Christians, but they still sort of allow. This is while it's still under Spanish rule. The the Spanish actually import hundreds, maybe thousands of, and they're not necessarily well distinguished as what part of Asia they're coming from. They're just calling them all Chin or Chin or whatever, like Chinese. But a lot of them come from southern Philippines that are Muslim, allow slaves from Asia to be brought in to work the silver mines and whatnot. Um, as you know, where the Chinese coming into America, they're coming in. They're not coming in as slaves from the American perspective. Some of them are definitely imported by Chinese under certain agreements, sort of indentured servitude, but that's more from the Chinese business side of things than the American side of things. Sure, there's lots of laws limiting their status, as they may not be considered status Americans. They're just status as foreign workers kind of thing, meaning don't get to vote and other things like that. Not necessarily allowed to bring women in because they don't necessarily want a large Chinese population. So like, yeah, you get to come in and work and maybe have a decent life, but that's about it. So America is definitely not any reasonable person would call, from the American perspective, the Chinese workers slaves. They were workers, yes. And they may have an indentured status to other the Chinese people paying for their, shipping across the Pacific and whatnot. But they were not slaves. That if anybody's saying that, that's really just a propagandistic and stretching the term so tight, that it's almost breaking, or basically breaking, to try to cover them as slaves. But in some of Latin America, they're doing so. Latin America, does not have any long-standing history of liberal democracies prior to Simon Bolivar, and after that, at best as I can tell, it's spotty and varies from country to country to things that sort of kind of look like democracies, but if you really look at them, there may or may not be mass voting, but all of the political parties are really run by the elites, and there's not a whole lot of, and I know a lot of Europeans, well, there's not a whole lot of, you don't have fascists and you don't have communists and they're all sort of the same. Well, yeah, but no. You don't have to be a liberal democracy. You don't have to let in political parties that at their core want to destroy you. The anti-Spain's, Spanish party, the party that wants to, make Spain no longer Spain or something. You don't have to allow that and still call yourself a liberal democracy. Or I don't know if I said that right, but, you can go, hey, yeah, you have to, in the United States, no matter, I know I haven't been getting all this chat here, but I will look at it. In the United States, yes, we have freedom of speech, we have freedom of thought, and all that stuff. But, if you're going to become an elected office holder, you must swear an oath to the U.S. Constitution, okay? So like everybody who goes into Congress, whether you're a Senate or House of Representatives, or you're the president, or whatever, and I believe all the state legislatures, I know in some of them, you swear an oath to both the state constitution and the the national constitution. And so you do have a few, and one of them we could even question on her, I'll identify it to her applications for citizenship that she appears, and again, I don't know all of the facts and have not investigated it personally, just read accounts of it, that they lied on their citizenship application. And if doing so, that is cause to revoke the citizenship application, which then, of course, revoke her being in office. But even with some of them have made some statements that might be construed as being contrary to her oath of office in upholding the Constitution. So technically, you can be a communist, but to hold office, you must vote to uphold the Constitution. And if then you are found to not be upholding the Constitution, which might just simply be your own statements after, not before, but after you've come into office, like if you get elected to, Congress, and then you make statements like, the people should rule and blah, 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 blah. These constitutions bullshit. It doesn't, it's worthless. If you start making those kind of statements, and my opinion is, you get to kick them out of office. Well, what? They got freedom of speech. Absolutely. But if you do not, now you can stay within the United States. You want to change the Constitution, yes, but you must first uphold to, you swear an oath to the Constitution to uphold the Constitution. So, and I guess maybe if you just say you want to change the Constitution, that's still upholding the Constitution because there's methods to change it. But if you say the Constitution is worthless and I don't care what the Constitution says, I'm going to vote for the right thing for the people, or some sort of bullshit like that, well, then you just said that you don't care what the Constitution may say. You're going to do something extra constitutional or non-constitutional, as opposed to saying we're going to change it and then do something different. So, yeah, you can remove them from office on that. So you can say that, oh, hey, if you're looking at, whether it's Latin America or Europe or wherever, and you have a constitution in place, and then again you get some communist radicals or some dictatorial right-wing radicals, and they then come out and make statements that are not like, oh, we must go through the constitutional process of changing the Constitution to do something better, whatever that may be, and specifying what it may be. Now, up until then, of course, I will support the Constitution, but we should see about changing it, as opposed to just saying, like, and again, Scavin was talking about some judge in Brazil, not as he sees it, and I'm not saying he's wrong, I just don't know, is not, is imposing things that are not constitutional on it. Well, you could say that would be reason for a coup against the judge, because the judge is not is in office and is not following the Constitution, as opposed to saying, well, this is what the Constitution says, so you must do that until you go through the process and change it. So yeah, you don't have to allow these radicals into government. And so again, goes back to earlier, is you have to have, for a nation to truly function in a pluralistic, doesn't necessarily mean democratic, but often with a representation element in it, you have to have a general consensus on what that society that is, and then from that is what the form of government you're going to have. So yeah. Okay, so Bubble Butt thinks this is interesting. Yeah, hard to tell Latin American history and Africans too. Yep. Thank you for the vote of confidence of being 100% right. And so yeah, so you have that. And the U.S. has tried to impose liberal democracies on much of the world, like Iraq or Afghanistan. And culturally, and it's failed because culturally those places are not suitable for liberal democracies. There is not a consensus society that is going to, within the consensus, democratically compete for their who rules. So what they'll do is say, like in a lot of the Arabs, is they are very tribalistic, and then the tribe sort of decides, and then everybody in the tribe basically agrees with the tribe. Now these tribes, you may be picturing people with tents and camels. No, a lot of them live in urban cities, and they may be somewhat geographically intermixed with other similar, maybe similar ethnic tribes, but different sort of tribal groups. And the tribes will sort of come together and agree upon whatever, and it's sort of the leaders of those tribes get together, and then since they more or less, because I know there's Sunni, there's Shiites, and there's Kurds and whatnot in Iraq, and that's sort of part of the problem there. But even within the Shiites or within the Sunnis or whatever, They may all culturally agree upon things, but they don't function in a liberal democracy because there isn't really viable choices that people will get to, vote on. Are we going to be socialist or liberal market economy? What are we going to do? No, it's just the elite within the tribes, and the tribes, may be, we're sort of socialist because, yeah, we're tribal. We want the tribe to be taken care of, and we're going to, within the tribe, kick anybody's butt who isn't working hard enough, who could work. Yeah, if you're old, you get taken care of. If you're a kid, you get taken care of. If you're injured or whatever, maybe you get taken care of. But you got to conform to the tribe within the group. And again, these can be rather urbanistic type peoples. They're not necessarily primitives, but within the tribe, you've got to function, and sort of dealt with. It was actually my father a little bit more dealing with it, but I was advising him. Um, a friend of our family's knows an Arab family, and they were trying to buy a house that my dad owned, and they ended up not being able to because their tribe, because they had bought another house, and they would have to sell it to this other, but the tribe would not loan them more money. So they were, and I don't want to go into too much detail, but they were from the Middle East and more or less upper class. The guy was here in America, very very legitimately here in America. All the right paperwork and all that kind of stuff. Um, but his financing was not coming from the bank. He was not going to one of our local banks and going, "Hey, this is my job. I want to buy this house. I can afford this level of mortgage. I have, No, he was contacting back in the Middle East family money, and with the expectation of paying them back. It wasn't like uh, daddy give me money to just go do whatever I want, because it wasn't that kind of wealthy situation. It was, oh, hey, yeah, you're part of the tribe. We can, and you've got a good job, and you're, and whatever, and we can, and you've been paying off your loans within the family situation and whatnot. And so he just could not get the people from the Middle East to give him, um, and it wasn't like a Saudi prince situation and nothing like that, but couldn't give him enough, or they didn't. Maybe they didn't have enough resources, to up the loan to buy a little bit nicer house than what he had. It was going to be a little bigger stuff. So I know that that's how they work in that. And again, he's a rather, speaks English very well with a little bit of a British sort of accent. Very well educated, but still, in essence, part of this Middle Eastern tribal situation. So it isn't, like the Afghan tribes in the hills that never leave their one little valley and whatnot. It's a different sort of way of organizing society and trying to impose a liberal democracy on it, and then thinking that that liberal democracy is going to keep every 4 or 5, 6 years or whatever resetting with a new set of votes. It's more like a democratic vote and to see who's in power and what's your power share, and then you're sort of stuck there. So that is why um, the U.S. has failed, and we should really go back to the sort of height of Cold War as picking allies, which might be somebody like Pinochet of Chile, is just um, an effective ruler of whatever nation it is. Does that nation need a brutal dictator, or does that nation need sort of a consensus builder? And what the sort of nature of the government is, and pick allies as opposed to trying to impose systems and presume that system is going to then have reasonable governments. And since we're a reasonable government and they're a reasonable government, we're all going to be reasonable together. Well, that's not how humanity works. Let's see what. I think it's funny you called the German-speaking Belgians German because here that pisses them off. You have to call them cantons. Okay. Yes. Yes, I get that there's local history. Question, Bubble Butt. Are those Germans in Belgium Catholic or Protestant? I'm curious. Because to me, they look like they're part of in the Protestant area of Germany, but they're in a Catholic country. And so I didn't know if they were there because they were Catholic or if they were there just because Germany lost wars, so Belgium got territory, and the people in it were German speaking. And the people in it did not want to be associated with the evil losers of the last war. And yes, history is painful. History is painful. That is very true. Well, let's resume the game here. I really like talking, but I also like playing games. So let's continue this, and we'll make another episode. Well, actually, I'm going to go grab a Coke here. And I'll be right back in just a moment. Let's get you a little prettier picture to look at. But I'll be right back just a moment. Okay, I am almost back. Welcome back, fellow armchair generals. This is Gamer 1745 with my continuing playthrough of Panzer Corps 2's Front Lines, the new mode, and we're playing the Battle of the Bulge campaign here, in which, even though it's Panzer Corps, we're playing as the Americans. And we are in the last turn here, about ready to end it here. We've held St. Vinth and three more victory hexes and destroyed the optional task of destroying the heavy anti-tank unit, which is actually over here. You know, we just clicked on the AA unit up there, but so we've achieved that, which is good. And we're going to see what happens when we end this turn. And before we go on, I want to read. The German-speaking community and the municipalities of Malmedy and Reims, German Reims, which belong to the French community of Belgium. Okay. The East Canton part of the Rhine province of Prussia, German Empire until 1920. The countries were annexed by Belgium following Germany's. Yeah, yes, we're going to do that. Okay. Threefold German armies are now on the move, sir. If anyone is still in doubt, we are facing nothing less than a full-scale offensive in a region the enemy knows all too well from Blitzkrieg in 1940. Historical infantry, 2 infantry regiments were encircled in the Schnee Eifel, and 7,000 GIs had to surrender. I believe that is my next door neighbor that I grew up next to was one of those guys. I know he surrendered, and I don't think it was down in Italy, because I know they captured a bunch of Americans down in Italy. I think it was, I'm not sure exactly at this group, but he was one of the GIs that got captured, as opposed to a pilot or somebody shot down. It was the heaviest defeat of the U.S. Army in Europe. U.S. forces still delayed the Germans, but withdraw from St. Vint later to avoid encirclement. By then, Schiff had mobilized the 82nd and the 101st Airborne Divisions, the only larger U.S. reserve available. The 82nd first plan to defend Bastogne was routed to block Kampfgruppe at Piper. Bastogne would be held by the 101st. And yes, there very much was at this time a bit of a pause because of winter and trying to resupply or keep supplied the Allied forces. I say that because there were some Free French and definitely a whole British army moving against the Germans. But there was not a lot of reserves in France and that region, partially because of the difficulty of supply. If you have an extra 3 divisions sitting around as reserve, well, they're going to eat supplies, whether and even troops not fighting use up ammo and training and whatnot. So maybe not nearly as much as at the front. So the U.S. or the Western Allies really did not have a reserve. The reason you had the airborne divisions is because, unlike Germans, by this point had stopped using their airborne forces as paratroopers. They used them as elite infantry. The U.S. and British were trying to continue to use the airborne forces as a, not as frontline soldiers, but in airborne operations. We have earlier than this, and I did a really nice live stream with my friend Admiral Teague on his channel, in which we looked at, we talked over the whole movie, but we ran A Bridge Too Far, the movie, and we talked about the history around it going on. And so that's, the airborne divisions were used there, as, parachuting and glider landing airborne forces. And then later than this, they are again used at Varsity, which is another jump across the Rhine, as airborne forces. So they very much are not trying to just use the 82nd and the 101st as just more infantry divisions on the front. They're trying to utilize them in their stated purpose, as opposed to just more divisions. So now this is an emergency situation, and and there were, and I don't know how many, there were some, I don't know whether, I really just don't know if there's a lot or just a few, but there were definitely some divisions, American divisions, sitting over in England, because there's plenty of supplies for all the American forces needed in England. It's just, at the front that it's becoming difficult to supply them, because they're just moving so fast to keep the supplies up at the front. So in some places, like, they're moving lots and lots and lots of supplies into places like the Normandy beach area landings, where they put the artificial harbors, and into a few of the other small harbors, but they can't take modern ships at all. I mean, they're sort of fishing harbors by the standards of the day, and they had been with smaller ships in the 18th century, cargo harbors. And I think by this time, but I'm not absolutely sure, but I think by this time, Brest had finally fallen. But that's way out to the west. The French port, and I don't know what shape that was in, so bringing supplies in through there wouldn't necessarily help, moving into Germany. And I think Antwerp had been opened by this time, and that's sort of maybe some of the, if things go super well, we can get the supplies in Antwerp and shut off Antwerp as a supply port for, the Ardennes Offensive. So, so they end up using the paratroopers as a blocking force, a stabilizing force, just because there is not another defensive setup here. And let's see, Okay, yes. World War I and the subsequent Treaty of Versailles. Right. Germans defeated. Yes. Hello, Sun Temple Radio. How you doing? Thank you. Thinking you get some time off the line. Yes. It was guerrilla fighters. Okay. All right. So let's end the briefing here. Okay. So we did this. We got the optional extra. Okay. We can defend Bastogne or stop Kampfgruppe Piper. So hold Bastogne or stop Kampfgruppe Piper. I'm going to stop Okay, Bastogne defense limited. Core blocking Piper may lead to more complex and costly battle. I'm going to go with Kampfgruppe Piper. I've always really sort of admired the idea and to a point the implementation of Kampfgruppe Piper. The historian doesn't tell this, but Belgium and France really didn't stop fighting. Well, I'm not. If you say during German occupation, yeah, it's a complex history. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to try to stop Kampfgruppe Piper. Let's see if we can do this. Kampfgruppe Piper. Well, I remember a time back that the U.S. Defense Secretary, Rumsfeld, thought that we should be giving up tanks entirely in the U.S. Army and moving over to the Stryker vehicles and having, because history was sort of over and we just needed rapidly deployable brigades around the world to like fight, in jungles and sandboxes. So we don't need these heavy tanks. But now that we're seeing, yes, we need tanks. And fortunately, he did not get to implement his desires. But I do think relatively small, independent in that it's self-contained and designed to fight for. I mean, we can talk for in terms of days, but that's sort of deceptive in the sense that how intense is the fighting is more like, shall we say, combat hours, and designed for how much movement you're going to have to how much fuel. But I sort of thought of a modern day, this was 10 years ago or more, so yeah, things have changed since then, but a modern day Kampfgruppe Piper to be contained in and of itself. Sure, it might, if available, have artillery assets. It should have artillery assets as part of it, but might be able to call on other assets, or also the modern day, whether it's drone air power or air strikes or whatever. It might very well be able to call on outside assets, but otherwise it's designed to be a self-contained fighting unit that's not. It's supposed to be much smaller than a brigade, though sort of vaguely battalion sized, in that it's multiple companies. So it's not meant to sustain a lot of fighting because it doesn't have the strategic depth of lots of troops and lots of tanks, but it's meant to sort of pre-attack an area before the attack happens, in that, like here, is to be out in front of the main offensive and causing disruption and trying to find weak spots to go in and exploit them, as opposed to like go in and take Bastogne and bust your way into it. No, it's meant to sneak around and sort of based off of the thing. What's our king has defeat, but our general citizens never did. That's why, except Belgium is incredibly alike. Okay. Yeah, Belgium is interesting in World War II, most assuredly. Heavy terrain and narrow roads full of retreating troops and refugees delay our reinforcement. So far, sir, due to the sheer mass of men and vehicles, the Germans struggle with similar problems moving in various battle groups. enemy armor is often strung out across long distances. Okay. The 82nd Airborne arriving, we are ready to stop Kampfgruppe Piper in the Northern German Spearhead and most capable formation of the 6th SS Panzer Army. We assume their ultimate objective is Fort of Antwerp, a major supply hub, as you know. Piper had already passed through the area of Malmedy on December 17th, and our troops entered the town to block further German forces. More German units are arriving at, yes. I can't pronounce all these names well. Watch out for updates on this matter. Split your forces to support key efforts in the area containing Kampfgruppe Piper is top priority. Weaken his main force. Defeat his small rear guard at Stavelot to cut supply lines. The situation will remain fluid as long as the enemy has enough mobile units to mount attacks in various directions. Okay, primarily hold Wermont and Malmedy for 15 turns, retake Stavelot, or however you say these places, hold or retake Sturmmount. Optional hold or retake all secondary hexes. Each secondary hex awards 5 prestige. A turn when held. Note AI moves first. Okay. Okay, we have a hero of an exterminator plus 5 attack against units below 50%. Right, okay. So, we lost an infantry unit last time. We're going to elite reinforce that. Okay, and it was our engineers. We had a really kick-ass engineer unit. Now, did I lose? Okay, let's see. When I lost him, did I lose the hero? Yes, it looks like I lost our hero as well. No, it's here. Oh, no, we didn't. Okay, that was our hero in the unit there. Rapid fire and cheap replacements. Okay, so he survived the destruction of the unit. So we're going to close this. We're going to buy U.S. engineers here. And I think we're, well, it's one more point. Yeah, we're going to do half tracks. We'll purchase that. Okay, and since we're rebuilding our engineers, we will assign him there. Okay, good. So this is our current force makeup. We're going to reinforce that, Jackson. That. Now we'll see about that one in just a moment. Okay, artillery is up to, and we have a few more points. We've got a 105. Now we do have a few units that are already on the board. Some are well off, some are a bit weaker. I don't know if they'll be able to reinforce up. We've got to, okay, we can deploy up there. We can deploy a little bit down here. Okay, we have down here anti-tank, artillery, heavy weapons, weak scout unit, and some Shermans. Sort of standard here. Okay, some artillery, anti-air, anti-tank. Pretty decent anti-tank there with some infantry up there. What are these guys? Airborne, okay. Right. Okay. They're getting to move first. Malmedy, we could push down to Malmedy. Let's see what we can buy here. Baffy's A, which is not all that useful for us, I don't think. Because we do have a long tom, do we not? Yes, we have a long tom. Okay. Well, we need to hold Wehrmacht. Hold or retake. We need to hold or retake that. There's Vermont is way back there, okay. And Malmedy is up here. So we need to hold here. Okay, and since all we have here, well, we have a 76 millimeter anti-tank gun, some heavy infantry, and some U.S. infantry there. We've got a few more way back here. Okay. There, we need to retake that. Okay, so that is very telling. Okay, so avoidable forces here. Right. Okay, so let's come in here with a .76 millimeter gun and a oh well, okay. One thing I think if we have enough points for an M7 priest. Yeah, I like that. That is 4 points. Okay. That leaves us with what, another 5. If I can do math well. Right. Okay, so that will be there. The other one we want to hold is here and hold retake there. So, we're going to have conf group at Piper, which is going to come at us fairly hard. So, let's also reinforce this. Okay, so now we've got a fairly good tank and a very good anti-tank that we can come up here and try to hold Malt with. And we're also going to be retaking. Let's go with big artillery piece. Okay. Big artillery piece. Now up here, this is a lot of very open ground. We'll have these starting 3 infantry units. One of them heavy infantry. So let's put one there. Okay. Now down here, do we want to so these guys are going to come our new and form up around here to try to hold that location. Most of these formations in here look fairly good, strength-wise. So, give them some support. Now down here again. Rangers and engineers. Our rangers are going to be moving on foot. Got a lot of sort of rough terrain in here, so let's put the rangers here. Okay, let's see here. Let's look at armor. We can do up to a M3A3. Not Gumbos, not these guys. We have one more point. Well, I think we could do this. Let's do this. Oh, what's the difference? Okay, yeah, a little better. So we'll purchase this. Okay, so with these three guys here, that'll give us a bit of a fighting unit here, and I think we can push down out of the north. I think we're going to hold in here well enough. So let's we need to take some of these supply points. Okay, let's put you here, you here, and you here. Okay, there we go. Let's save this. There we go. All right, so that is our deployment. Germans get first turn, or move first. We've got 20 turn. Oh, no. Oh, there's still a hero to be deployed. That's right. It's out here. Killer, no retaliation. This guy. Hit and roar. Do we put the exterminator there? Yeah, that sounds good. Okay, I think that is it. See how well they get their first turn. Oh, took out my... Okay, so they've pushed hard on us first turn and it's snowing. Yes, we're not planning on doing any air power. Alright, here we are. We do not have control over that or this, but we do have control over this. Rangers here, okay. Okay. Reinforce that. You withdraw into the forest. You guys just... okay. You guys can make it to here. You're in anti-tank mode, so that is good. We can deploy. Leave them back there. What is this? Okay, supply dump. We can leave. I think you protecting that. You guys can move to here. Keep in the forest. Alright, now here. Okay, I think that's where we want to defend here. This objective hex. Now, these guys... well... there we go. Down here. Okay. You can make it all the way back to here and still deploy, so don't need to hold that. I'd rather hold this. So you come to here, you come to here. And you hide in the woods. Now up here, they can make it back to there. We are thinking about pushing down here. We're there, but not right away. You can head into the... You can head to there. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Okay, those are not under my control, allies. These guys... Oh, I could get them into the forest, I would, but I can't, so we'll leave them where they're at. Here, though, I think we will fall back. These guys in the village. Okay, yeah, they're getting pushed back. These guys, yeah. They survived. Okay, we're receiving reports about troop movement south of Malmedy. Sometimes they seem to refer to unknown American units, sometimes to the enemy. Earlier rumors of enemy paratroopers appearing behind front lines often turned out to be wrong or exaggerated, but watch out for a G2 update on this matter. Okay. Right. Well, now that you're here, let's reinforce you. I think I'm going to try to be clever. We may push up a little bit. Ah, here we are of enemy units trying to be clever. Okay, so that's a little better shape there. Hoping to just eliminate them, but I guess that's not going to be the case right now. Okay, well now we're here. Okay, so we are pretty well turtled up. They're sitting over there. Okay, well, we have all these forces up here, but I think we're going to move up to here because we can. Switch you over to anti-tank mode. And I think down here we also don't need to be too defensive here. We want to watch out for paratroopers of unknown origin, but I don't know if we can get through there, but are just slowly maybe. Yeah, I think that's good. Ow. That did something over here. Okay. Ah, yes. A panther with American symbols. They were really mocked up to look like M10 tank destroyers, but yes. Okay, reinforce. Oh, I forgot to reinforce these guys, I think, last time. So let's just move you out of the way. We'll reinforce maybe next time here. Okay. Placements there. We're going to shift it right to here. Our big long toms. Let's see what we can do. Okay, no particularly great effect, but now down here, let's move you up to here, you to here, and we'll just sort of hang out down in the south. Okay, well, there's Jerry. Hi, Jerry. We're going to just stay right here where we are at. And hope Jerry attacks us at the right spot. Okay, well. I'm going to withdraw to there. These guys are going to come to here. There we go. Those guys are going to stay there. Oh, these guys, yes. I'm going to move you up through the forests. Let's move your artillery piece there, because that's what they are. Move the engineers to there. If you take them to there, I think. There we go. Okay, they overran this one unit there. Oop, took that out badly. Okay. Sir G2 has evaluated intelligence about the enemy attempts to cause confusion in our lines by using special units equipped with captured U.S. hardware and wearing U.S. uniforms. The initial folks are confident the identified troops near Malmedy part of this effort, prepared to hold the town at all costs. Okay. Yeah, I really like Panzer Corps Sun Temple Radio. It is not the most realistic war game, or even trying to be that, but it is a, I think, a rather good one still. Okay. The Panther did not come after us there. Oh, these guys did attack down here. We're going to move up the artillery to a short range. I think we got that. Oh, let's do this. You get to come back to there. That's good. You're having a little problem up here. You took out one light anti-tank gun that we had here, which is a pain that it's gone. Not that it's terribly a big problem, but still it's a pain. Okay, I need to get rid of that unit there. Okay, well, I think we need to do this piecemeal. Nah, I'm gonna... Well, that actually turned out to be fairly good, but we have not gotten rid of that guy yet. Uh-huh. well, maybe I don't have to worry too much about that being encircled this turn. Now, what are we going to do here? Holding this at quote-unquote all costs, but costs so far are low. Let's reinforce that. Maybe reinforce now. Okay. That messed up my AA guns. Well, killed them. Okay, killed the AA guns. Okay, let's reinforce. Anything happening up here? No. Down here? No, not really. Let's actually retreat back a little bit. See if they bring any more forces forward. Oh, there we are. More Jerry over here. Paratroopers, yes. Okay, well. Let's shift you to here. You to here. We'll start firing on you even way out there. You to there. Okay, that's good. Our instead of paratroopers, where? Okay, these guys there. Wait. Okay, well maybe I'm moving them through the forest. I should just have them walk up there. Well, I definitely want to take this guy out. Very nice. Boom, that did a nice hit. Okay, well. Yeah. I know we're potentially going to take, well, actually did better than, much better exchange than I thought we would. Okay. Mess up the leading elements of Conf Group A Piper. Just did an insane attack on us. And I say that. knowing what I'm talking about. Hello. Mhm. Ah, here's the Germans back. We're gonna move you up here. So take a look around and get the reconnaissance bonus. Do that. We're gonna do that so that he still has anti-tank guns supporting him, just in case there's a Panther unit or something coming to support there. Oh, hey, yeah, Zedpuds. Spadenschützen. Okay, there we go. You guys keep running up. You should have been running up for a while there. That was my mistake. Okay, we're going to fleet reinforce you. Let's just kill this unit. There we go, they surrender, nice. You come up like that. Okay, we're gonna try to long pump these guys to death. And we did, yay! The one thing I really do admire about German ingenuity, maybe a good term. In World War II. Now it's both a good and a bad thing. It's good in their sort of creative ability to do stuff, but it's bad that they needed to do it on such a significant scale. Early in the American experience in World War II, we needed to extemporize things a bit, be creative, in that we had half tracks starting to be spammed out. We needed tank destroyers, so we literally got leftover French 75mm guns from World War I that we had in inventory, and we mounted those into half tracks as tank destroying weapons and infantry fire support. And then later, I think mounting some 105mm guns into the half tracks. And I would even say the M3 Lee, the thing with the turret and the 75mm gun in it, is also an extemporized thing, because it was, we need a tank today, not a tank tomorrow. And there was no production facilities that in the U.S. that could make a turret, cast a turret large enough to hold a 75mm gun. And that was what, and this is actually sort of starting out, well, both for American needs, but also British needs. So the British needs were for today, not tomorrow. Obviously, it's going to take some time to make the tank and get it to, like, North Africa, where it shows up. But they need it there now, not later. So they put the 75mm down in the hull. They put an aircraft engine in the back of the tank, which also makes it, both of those two things make it tall. And then, because realizing, hey, yeah, a sponson, or even if it was a center mounted like a Stug, they wanted it to be a tank to be able to, a turret to turn 360 degrees around, but definitely in a real practical sense, forward firing arc turret, complete. So they have actually a very good 37mm gun, but it is still just a 37mm gun up there that there with a coaxial machine gun and another turret on top of the turret for the commander to play with, to have another machine gun on it. But yeah, British didn't quite like that, so they did a different turret, or requested a different turret be made for it. And the British did use the Lee, that they're the ones that named it, and then they mostly used the Grant, which was their sort of tailored version of it. See, the Americans did a little bit of this early in the war, but Germany was doing this throughout the war just because they could not produce enough anything. They just could not produce enough anything. But I really do admire how they engaged in this. The Wasp, this little guy here, that is a Panzer II hull. So you have the Panzer II production line system. It's cranking out Panzer IIs. It gets to the point that, oh, hey, yeah, Panzer II's really, not what we want so much anymore. Well, I mean, yeah, we still sort of kind of want them because anything's better than nothing. But we've got better things to put our resources into. But instead of shutting the factory down and retooling it over to like a Panzer IV, Panzer III hulls, which there's very, very good reason to do said things. And this is very much where Guderian and Speer agree that they want to streamline production, produce fewer different models. Now, there's one thing, I mean, obviously the one thing good about it is the whole supply and logistics chain. You're supplying fewer vehicle types with fewer, spare part types, and you can produce probably more of them more efficiently. But the bad thing is, us cool armored dudes, that love looking at German World War II armor, we like all the weird and wonderful development. So, hey, makes Germany fall faster, so yay, but also yay, we get all these different armor type vehicles to obsess over. And so here's the Wasp. It's continuing using, and it is efficiently using the Panzer II hull engine style. Now they move the engine around a bit, move it forward instead of having it in the back, but they're still basically the same engine, basically the same transmission, and basically the same running gear, and much of the sort of hull construction, at least the lower part, is basically the same. Obviously they have this thing up here, and they make quite a few of these now, just in the hundreds, but not huge numbers of the Wasp, and they mount a 105 millimeter gun on it that is just barely fits. So they don't have a lot of ammunition with it. It's not that great, but it's good. Now, what they're also making at the same time that they're making the Wasp is they're making the Marder II, and which is basically the same hull. It just has a PaK 40 gun in it. So it's a mobile anti-tank gun. So this, it also does help Germany to operate too. So they're doing this as, a double shot. It's what they're mounting in it, and sort of final mechanics like slots where you put the ammunition is slightly different because of different rounds kind of thing. Now Germany also does here the Hummel here, which is a 150 millimeter gun in a it's a little bit of Panzer III elements, a little bit of Panzer IV elements, but basically a Panzer IV hull. So they're putting a 150 millimeter howitzer on it. Now this fits a bit better. Still don't carry a lot of ammunition. A lot of these vehicles are followed by trucks around, but it's an armored vehicle that can quickly move and deploy in the 150 millimeter gun. It's moderately well protected, does pretty well. Now what they're also doing is the exact same hull, or super close to it, is the Nashorn, which is the longer barreled, bigger chambered, sort of super 88 millimeter round. Not the one that the Tiger uses, sort of upgun from the Tiger. So that is a long-range tank destroyer, and that does work rather well, so long as, and in most cases they can keep it far back to where it is hard to be hit, because it's especially used on the Eastern Front, where you often have long sight lines. that the Soviets just, they're driving around in their tanks. They sort of see muzzle blasts or whatever. Oh, we're being shot at. Yeah, well, okay, good. And then boom, you blow up. Now, eventually there's some of the tanks are realizing, hey, the tanks near me are just blowing up, And so, oh, must be a dangerous gun out there. And so they're trying to look for these things. And, range finding isn't terribly great. Their optical setup isn't terribly great. Not necessarily that, and I don't know how well the optics are aligned with the gun. And this is one thing that, again, I'm not an expert on, but just read a little bit. It's you don't just go in and mount that main gun and then stick a scope next to it. You got to sort of get them zeroed in, because I know this on rifles. You got to get them zeroed in, and so the range evaluation and all of that is set up. And I don't know that the Soviet the quality is there, and how well, when you look through that gun sight, which is an optical scope, and look at that enemy tank and get the crosshairs on the enemy tank, and even if you're, in your range estimating, oh, that's 500 yards, and so you move it to the 500 yards thing, how well that is in line with that gun, because really to my understanding, again, I'm not a World War II tanker. Modern tanks are different, so if you're a modern tanker, I don't know exactly how it correlates to World War II, but it is slightly different. It's similar, but slightly different. So you really sort of got to fire some rounds. And again, I don't know how consistent even the Soviet ammunition for tank ammunition is. But you got to fire some rounds, and a high explosive round will work different than a high penetration round. So I don't even know how they're judging, the Soviet tanks are judging the round impact range difference and setting all of that up into their one range scope. I really don't know, but I don't think it's so good. And so, oh, hey, a tank is sort of big, and unlike War Thunder, where you're often playing at very short ranges and the guns are fairly well zeroed in, in real life it's not quite, so you're not necessarily hitting on the vulnerable spot at sort of longer range. So it's oh yeah, 300 yards, 500 yards, yeah, you're going to hit the thing most of the time, when you fire the tank and, the tank gun at it. And if you have a reasonably good armor, if you're running around in a T-72, like the 76 millimeter version, and you're shooting that at an up-armored Panzer IV or a Tiger, you're probably not going to do serious damage to the tank. Because you're likely to miss it a few times too, getting that range just right. But even 300-400 yards, you're probably not so bad. But if you can just get it out at the starting in the 800,000 yards or longer range, well, then you're probably not necessarily going to hit this thing with your Soviet tank. And they try to keep them far back, when they're the anti-tank version. And so even though this is vulnerable, because there's no real effective armor against any tank guns, but, so you can just literally explodify Soviet tanks out there before they can effectively return fire on you. Now, they're not invulnerable in that the Soviets do have aircraft that do ground strikes, the Sturmovik and others, and they do have artillery to counter battery fire, and they just also have a lot of tanks to drive at the enemy and eventually get close enough. So I really do love these various German developments of the tank. So it's not entirely, like I was saying earlier, with the idea of bad for them and that they didn't streamline production as much as they could have, but it is not necessarily the best either, because they are having to supply Panzer II types. And they're also trying to they end up making about 100 of them, but they want to make 1,000 of them or more. A different model Panzer II for reconnaissance vehicles that mostly the parts, even the engines and transmissions, are all new. So, and oh hey, the Puma, the 8-rad Puma here that is sort of a mix of German and Czech designs, is a diesel engine. All the rest of German armor is
standard gasoline type engine. So you now have to supply a different ammo to. Yeah, let's guys. A different fuel to these guys, not ammo, different fuel to these guys than everybody else. So, it's cool for us, armor geeks, but it really is a bit of a, thing to mess with and deal with on a large scale. Okay, so let's give them their turn. Okay, their crowd shoots and they're coming in around me. Oop, oh. Oh, pushing back here. Okay. So we have a panther here in winter camouflage, and we have a tiger 2, or a king tiger. Alrighty now. That just tells me I pushed out too far here. Okay, we'll see what we can do to save the situation. Right. Now we have these guys. So these guys fell back. These guys, yeah. These guys, for some reason, went to the hill so they could be badly effed up. Bridging unit. Okay, well. Oh, good. We got an overrun. Okay, so they've got artillery support. That strength. Okay, now that's where we've sort of messed up, pushed up a little too far. Right, okay, well here, I want to make sure I end these guys. So let's... Okay, we're going to stay there because that's going to sort of support these, and these guys run off into the woods. There we go. Puma. Well, okay. Now here's another thing: is the same hull. Well, maybe it's better to come up here as the Puma, but it has a short-barreled 75mm gun. Now they were not meant to come in and attack a unit like this. They were meant to be fire support if they got sort of attacked by enemy reconnaissance forces while they were moving around. Okay, we're gonna hopefully kill that. Oh, good. And we got overrun. Oh, we've got a nice panther over here. Okay, so these guys are gonna move to here, be supported by that anti-tank gun. All right. Could have forgot about that panther. Come up here. Okay, what can we save? What can't we save? Like these guys here. Okay. These are in their anti-tank roles.
And they're at strength 3 here. Okay. Okay, the tank destroyer is going to come down to here. This guy is going to come back to here and support that. This guy's going to drive all the way down to there. This guy's going to drive into the forest here. And this guy here is going to, I think, drive to here. I don't know that these guys are going to get through this forest past him all this turn and hit him. So he can probably survive. These guys probably won't. Should have probably moved them back. Those are still dangerous. Alright, well, they're all supported by artillery. Okay, well, let's pound on this guy a bit. Okay, I think we will. King Tiger withdrew. One of them moved up to here. What's happening down here? Infantry showed up. Okay. I think they got a little messed up from the artillery. And what is going on up here? Okay. Oh, Panthers came in and sort of kind of attacked there. Right. Hello. Raw Berbers. Salaps? Sorry, I'm probably butchering. Don't mean to. Tough spot. Not much can bother the Tiger 2 aside from the Jackson there, unless he decides to play hide and seek in the woods with infantry. Absolutely, yes. I am the Tiger 2 that went here is maybe going up and around this way or something, and I am definitely worried about that. For sure. I think the Panther's sitting right there. But that gives me time to, is this information? Is this a core unit? Wait, here if it's a core unit. Okay, no, how do I, okay, yes, it's my core unit 57. All right, so I will elite reinforce that. This is not a core unit, so we will just regular reinforce him. I think this is my elite one, or my core unit, not sure though. Okay, and see, he's just going to hang out in the town and hold. Okay. Now here, got some crowd shoots and, all right. That's just going to be done this turn. So, yeah, fully suppress those guys. They retreat to there. I guess these guys come up to here. Don't know that I want to move up. Okay, well, either I'm gonna hmm. Okay, our 105s could come up that way, but he's going to come this way. And yes, tanks in the forest, as we just talked about, but he does have artillery backing him up here. So, I think we're just going to try to eliminate this guy. Right. And so if these guys come and attack here, they'll get artillery support from here or vice versa. So I think we're pretty good there. We're going to move him up to here. Move these guys up to here. You to this bit of forest. With this game that I learned way back when it was Panzer General, sort of like what I call a ballet of movement. I think we'll just keep hanging back. Because what we are going to do is shift these guys out of the forest into this. And how to use support weapons to deal with the enemy here. We're going to move up there, which encircles him, and these guys are going to move here, which keeps these guys encircled, but we're going to up here. And yes, they're now themselves counter encircled. Yeah, we'll take equal exchange there, I guess. No, I think we're good enough. Okay. There we go. I'm going to try to free that unit up from being encircled and attacking here all around. Oop! He decided to drive through the forest. Things didn't go terribly well for him. Oh boy, we got Panther here. Oh boy, this is... what is with this unit here? Is he... Ah, Johann's Fox, Vigilant and Sixth Sense. Okay. May have not been the smartest attack that I was doing. So not get support fire from other units, making them a bit harder to use. Yeah. Okay. We're going to do that and then fall back. These guys are going to come up and attack. Push him back there. Right. Okay. Now.
that panther, instead of coming after these guys, went up here. Oh, hey, hi, Stug Force. Down here. Yeah, you get that. Kill them. Okay. Well, now that the King Tiger is buggered off, probably heading over here. And we have somewhat. Let's see if we were to. No, not so much. I think we'll just stay where we're at. Okay. Well. That does not free them up. Oh, no, it does free them up from the circle. Okay. Well, that sure messed them up. You guys are just gonna get. Again, is this core unit or not? Yeah, this is core unit, I believe. So let's. We'll move you up too. Into the woods here to. Well, I hope all the new people around have either subscribed or followed the channels, whether you're on Twitch, YouTube, or even Twitter, which I'm on those three today. Okay, up here. There we go, overrun. But before we do that overrun, we're going to move up to here. And we're going to artillery these guys. I think we're going to reinforce that. They're encircled now, but these, if there is Tiger 2 or something coming, we do have the Jackson supporting it. They are messed up, and now even more messed up. So they're all messed up, which is good. Yeah, I like that well enough. I guess these guys should just move into the trees in case the Germans do show up. But I think we're going to end things here. I want to thank everyone. Thanks. Rara Barber stuff. Sorry, I'm butchering that. Sun Temple Radio. Bubble Butt versus me. Who else has been hanging around here? Of course, Skaven earlier. I don't know if you're still around. Ringo the Dingo. Arno, if you're still around, thank you for being a great moderator. So I want to thank everybody. Oh, and ZZ and Zaza. Yeah, tomorrow, yes. Hopefully, I will be streaming War Thunder tomorrow. I say hopefully because it's Easter. I have an afternoon family thing that I really want to go to. So it's going to be ending early, and I may start early. It just if I wake up and if I had not a great sleep last night, so that's why I started late. I set my alarm clock late because I didn't get much sleep. So if I can get enough sleep, I will wake up. I will do a War Thunder tomorrow, Arno. So yeah, so we may be doing an early start tomorrow. I know the clocks change in Europe, I believe, tomorrow or something, or whatever. So
I may be doing an early start tomorrow if I'm waking up and ready to play. But don't worry if for some reason I just sleep in and don't do it, because I'm probably going to have to end it at my time at 11 a.m. So I can get ready and to go and whatnot. So it might just be for a couple hours, or it might not happen. So we'll see. Oh, it might even be a couple hours early if I'm awake. If I'm awake and wanting to play, I will just start early. So whether you guys show up or not, so we'll definitely try to do some War Thunder tomorrow. Not definitely to do it because I'm not sure. So we'll definitely look at that. So thanks everyone, and I believe it's Friday. Maybe Terminator. I'm doing it for Slytherin, but I'm not absolutely sure right now. So hopefully we'll play tomorrow. Thanks everyone.